This is a tutorial for 2 lesson plans, Thinking Like an Economist, Parts 1 and 2. If you're looking for a better way to introduce students to the foundational concepts of economics, consider using these lessons that will help students see econ in everyday life. These lessons are a part of Econiful's one-semester on-level high school curriculum. They're in Unit 1, Economic Foundations. They're lessons 1.3 and 1.4. Before these lessons, we started with lesson 1.2, Packing for a River Trip, which is a simulation that we're going to use examples from throughout these 2 lessons. So we highly recommend pairing 1.2 with 1.3 and 1.4. But if you didn't use 1.2, you can definitely trade out the examples we use for something else. The core of these 2 lessons is getting students comfortable with the 4 principles of economic thinking. In 1.3, we cover cost-benefit and opportunity cost principles. And in 1.4, we review the marginal and interdependence principles. So the sequence for 1.3 is defining economics and the role of economists, introducing those 2 principles, doing a practice and demonstration, and then handing out the Unit 1 overview. Before we get into the slides, we have this key terms handout. You can use it one of 2 ways. You can use it as a scaffolding technique where you hand it out to some or all students right at the beginning, or you can use it as a metacognition technique where you wait until after these 2 lessons, let students take their own notes, and then hand this out to help them fill in their gaps. So let's get into the slides for Thinking Like an Economist Part 1. These are not all the slides in the lesson plan for the sake of time. We start with an activator that has students consider a list of questions and check which ones seem important or interesting. They may not seem like they have anything to do with economics, things like why are EpiPens so expensive? Why do people find it so hard to stick to their New Year's resolutions? Is it worth it to go to college? But we want to reinforce that economics is about everyday life, and it's not just about money and stocks. On this slide, we show some of the subfields that these questions relate to and emphasize that they're all linked to human behavior, particularly the choices that individuals, firms, and/or societies make. We include these so students can see the diversity in economics and also start to think about what it is economists do. Economists study choices. They're social scientists who use the scientific method and use data to answer questions and make predictions. Before revealing our definition, we have students consider how they would define economics. We also define scarcity, microeconomics, and macroeconomics. And then we get into the cost-benefit principles. And just a little bit of background about these principles is that these are the ones that economists Betsy Stevenson and Justin Wolfers use in their introductory textbook for college students. So the cost-benefit principle is about maximizing your benefits, aka utility, and pursuing a choice only if the benefits are at least as large as the cost. The opportunity cost principle starts with defining opportunity cost, which is the next best alternative that you give up when you make a choice. And you'll see this yellow stumbling block graphic. We have this throughout our lesson plans to alert both teachers and students of common areas of confusion. Whenever you see this, there'll be more information in the notes section explaining why this is a stumbling block. So in this instance, it's that the opportunity cost is only the next best alternative that you give up and not all the other options. So for a snack, if you're choosing between a donut and an apple and you choose the donut, the opportunity cost is the apple and not everything else you could have eaten for your snack. I'm really skimming over these principles. In the lesson plan, we set aside around 15 minutes to go into both of these, but I'm going to move on to the practice and demonstration, and I'll show you what that looks like. There'll be a handout. Students will have a few options that they can choose from to do a practice, and then they can check their understanding and move on to a demonstration where they'll respond to one of 2 prompts. The summarizer works with the Unit 1 overview handout to start connecting the overarching themes of this curriculum with what they've been learning. So that concludes the tutorial for Part 1. If you'd like, you can head over to econiful.org right now and find all of those materials, the slides and handouts, and look those over, or if you want to pull up the slides and handouts for part 2, you're welcome to do that. So for part 2, we'll cover the next 2 economic principles. We'll do a scenario dissection to apply those principles, and then a retrieval practice and summarizer. The activator gives students a chance to retrieve the 2 principles they learned in the prior class and apply them to a story. So then they'll get out their student handout from the last lesson. I didn't show this before, but this is what their note taker looks like. You can pause here to review the principles from the previous class as needed. And then we'll move on to the marginal principle. In economics, marginal simply refers to the next one, the next minute, the next employee, the next product. So decisions about quantity are best made incrementally is the marginal principle. In other words, break how many decisions down into a series of smaller or marginal decisions. The interdependence principle is that your best choice depends on your other choices, external developments, and expectations about the future. When any of these factors change, your best choice might change. So again, there's a lot more information about these principles in the lesson plan, but for the sake of the tutorial, I'm skimming over them. After introducing the marginal interdependence principles, we'll apply all 4 principles of economic thinking to a scenario dissection. You choose to scroll through TikTok. When should you stop scrolling? And as a class, we'll go through how each of those 4 principles can apply to that scenario. And then there'll be a couple other scenarios that students will work with a peer, and then we'll debrief together as a class. After that, there will be a retrieval practice. Students start by assessing their confidence in each of the principles. Then they'll do a multiple choice, and they'll have an answer key to identify any places of confusion. And lastly, there'll be a reinforcement reading. It's about a half page per principle, so they'll choose the one they're the least confident in to bolster their understanding. And that completes the tutorial for 1.4. If you do this lesson in your class, we would love to hear how it goes. We've got a link to a 30-second feedback form in each of our lesson plans and at the end of all our slides. Please reach out to us if you have any questions at all. You can email us at info@econofol.org, and we'd love to hear from you.